Hi, my name is Taylor Smaguer. I'm one of the developers working on BLT Business Leader Threads, the app that digitizes the clothes closet. Today I'm going to be acting out as our primary persona, Cameron, as they upload a batch of clothes to the app for students to view. Starting out, Cameron has received a batch of items that they need to upload into the app. So the first step is going to be to log in. I already have my login credentials saved, so we're going to go ahead and use that. And then next, Cameron will be able to see all of the items that are currently in the closet. But we need to add some items, so I'm going to click Add Item, which opens the camera. Okay, so now we're going to input both of these items into our app. So I'll take a picture of this shirt first, and then fill in the different attributes. So color, I think, is purple. The size says small. The style is, it's a woman's, so we'll put feminine. And the type is a shirt. Return. And then before we upload it, I'm just gonna take note of this. I have to keep track of the code so that I can delete it later. And then for our purposes, we just need to write the size and the style. Now, since I want to upload more items from my batch, I'm going to hit Upload Item, and that'll take us directly back to the camera. So now I'll take a picture of the blazer and go through the same process. Keep track of which is which. Got to fill out the fields. This is black. Size is 12. Style is also feminine. And the type is jacket. So we have 12. And since that is all of the items in this batch, I will hit Upload and Finish, which will bring me back to the home screen. So now we can see that the items I just uploaded from that batch are shown in the main home screen. But it looks like I made an error on this shirt. It says it's a size medium, but it's actually a small. So we can actually click on it to go in and edit. I can change the medium to small, and then hit Update Item. And the changes are automatically reflected in the closet. All right, so since I uploaded these items into our digital closet, a student noticed them and wanted to take both of them. So now a quick way to delete them is by using the 3-letter code. So starting with the blazer, I'm going to click on Delete Items and then input the code ABC and then hit Enter. It'll show me the item to be deleted and that information looks right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Delete, and then there's another confirmation, so I'll hit Delete again and it says Item successfully deleted. Now I can go straight into deleting the second item conveniently. So I will type in the 3-letter code, ABB, hit enter, review that that information looks accurate, and then hit delete and confirm. So there we go. We just quickly deleted both items from the digital closet so that other students don't get confused about what is or isn't in the closet. So, as you can see, the needs of our primary persona, Cameron, were well met because they were able to quickly input items into the digital closet as well as manage the content within it. In addition to that, we were able to reach students with the items that we uploaded, making it easier to help students, which is one of Cameron's main goals. So next, what we'd like to do is discuss the high-level technical details of our project, starting with the login and registration page. So starting with registering, I'll go ahead and click on that, and we'll be directed to the register page. Just as an example, I'm going to enter a random email. Let's call it random at example.com. And then we'll enter a password. And note that the passwords need to match, otherwise it will not go through. So basically, when I hit the register button, it will call the register user function and then store the email and the password that I typed in. And then if the password is not equal to the other password that we type in here, it will not allow us to create this account. As you'll see, we will instead get an error message, those passwords don't match, try again. So we'll try again. And this time we get the registration successful message. And if this is true, we should be able to see the update reflected in our database, which I will show you now. These are the ones we had previously registered, but if I refresh the page, you'll see that the one we just created now shows up. And so basically what happened was that this method was called because the passwords matched, and then it created the account with the email and password that we entered and gave that to Firebase. So next, to show that that worked for sure, we're going to go to the login page and use the account that we just made to log in. So random.example.com and our super secret password, and we'll go ahead and log in. And we'll see the login successful message, and we'll be taken to our home screen. And just to give you a brief overview of what that just did, hitting the login button called the login user function. And again, it called a method from Firebase to sign in with the email and password that we entered. Next, I'd like to go through the technical details of how we were able to accomplish this home screen. So being able to show the changes that happen in the database instantly after they happen, and also being able to just display all the items cleanly and scroll through it. So the first step in displaying all of these items is to get a reference for where they're stored in the database. So we do that here with document reference, where we access the Firestore database and get the collection where all of the items are stored. As you can see here, our collection name is closet, and then we have all of the unique identifiers for each of the items here, and then the fields that correspond to them. So this is how we're going to get these fields of the images. Now, for each document reference, we're going to create a snapshot listener, and this will basically listen for any changes that are made to the items in a database, and it will automatically update them when any changes are made. So from there, we keep an updated list of items, and items are a class that we defined. So each item has a string that is for this information and an image URL, which corresponds to the image in the database. So coming back to here, we create a string, which turns into the style and the size being displayed. So that's masculine 16. We also keep track of the doc ID, that's AAH, for example. And then we also keep track of the URL for the image, which is identified using the document ID, since that is unique for each item. You can also see this is going to be useful for when we want to get the image from storage. So each item is uniquely identified by the 3-letter code. So next we take those elements and add it to our array of items. And then the next step is to get the recycler view by its ID. This is coming from our activity home XML. You can see that the recycler view is defined here. So recycler view makes it easy to efficiently display large sets of data. So we just supply the data and define how each item looks, and then the recycler view library dynamically creates the elements when they're needed. So this is very useful because we can display each of the items. The actual display for the items is defined in item list or list item.xml. So you can see here we have the image and the text for each item being defined and styling that in a linear layout. And then this will basically be pushed into the recycler view, and that's how it displays each item. So there's a lot that goes into using the recycler view to display data. One thing you need to define is a layout manager. So a layout manager is responsible for measuring and positioning item views within a recycler view, as well as determining the policy for when to recycle items that are no longer visible to the user. So by changing the layout manager, a recycler view could be used to implement a standard vertically scrolling list, or a grid, or horizontally scrolling collections, etc. But in this case, we're using a grid. As you can see, we have defined a grid layout manager, and this also allows us to define the span count. So this is 2, which indicates that there are 2 items per row. So another thing we need to use the recycler view is an adapter. And so I had to create a class called item adapter. And this class contains some important functions to work with the recycler view. It essentially helps to populate our recycler view with a list of items. I will show you what those functions are now. So the main important ones are on create view holder, which sets the views to display the items. We also have on bind view holder, which is used to bind the list of items to our widgets, such as text view and image view in this case. And it also returns the count of items presented in the list. So one function in here that I want to give a bit more detail on is on bind view holder, because this shows how we are getting the information for each item. So first of all, we need to get a reference to our storage, and then a reference to the specific item that we're trying to access. So the image URL, is passed in through the item. As you can remember, we have these 2 items in the class. So that will create a URL like this one, for example. And then we are using Glide to display the images. So to tell you a bit about Glide, Glide is an image loader library for Android, which is developed by BumpTech, and it handles image loading and caching. So Glide's primary focus is on making scrolling and any kind of list of images as smooth and as fast as possible, which makes it very useful for us. Um, and it also has this very easy interface to use. So all I had to do was define um, what are we loading and what we were loading it into. I also wanted to define the size of the image just so it looked nice. And I also just want to quickly mention that each of these items allows you to click on them to edit them directly, and that is handled through this um, set on click listener, which will call this function when the item is clicked. So this allows us to pass the data from the item into edit activity, which allows us to edit the item. So as you can see here, the outcome is that we get to quickly scroll through the items in our home screen and have our changes that are made to the database show up instantly in the app.
Hi, my name is Kendra, and I'm going to be discussing some of the features of our app. So first of all, for taking photos of the items, we use the Camera X API. And Camera X is a Jetpack library from Android, and it's built to help make camera app development easier. And it has an API that works across the vast majority of Android devices. And this is beneficial because for our use case, we expected that Android devices, because they are less expensive, would be better. However, since there are a variety of devices and we don't know which ones they would acquire, having a flexible software stack is beneficial. So that's one benefit of Camera X. How it works is when the camera is open, when the picture button is pressed, it takes the picture by starting a thread for that and using the back camera. And then the image is saved. For where to save the image, first of all, there's unique code that's generated that we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's stored to the cache temporarily. And this took a bit of experimentation to settle on after trying the device's main storage as well. But we found the cache to be beneficial. And once it is stored in the cache, then it can be uploaded to our Firestore database, specifically in storage. So as you can see here, here's one at the unique code, AAH, and it's a shirt. And the benefit of Firestore storage specifically is that it's public information. So you can see that it's hosted at this specific URL, and that is useful for displaying this image later. So then once this photo has been uploaded, then it's time for the worker to put in their information. And the way that this works is, first of all, the 3-digit code is sent forward. And so the reasoning behind this code, that's like that AAH, is that there could be multiple items that, like, there could be more than one masculine jacket that's black, that's a size 40, just because that's a pretty common item. So there needs to be some way besides just the photo to be certain that an item is the same item that's being referenced in the database. And then the reasoning behind the 3-digit code is that there's already these tags that are being written out for student use as they're searching through the closet. And those are being handwritten by workers. So by adding this 3-digit code, which can store up to or uniquely encode up to 17,000 clothing items, just isn't that much more work, and it does offer this unique identifier. Currently, the way that the code is generated is by just counting the number of items in the database and then converting that into a 3-digit string, and then always adding the next one. In the future, something that would be beneficial would be using a priority queue to always take the sort of lowest value 3-digit code that isn't currently in use and using that. But that would be for later. And for the meantime, it's functional. And the way that that works is it just pulls how many items are currently in the closet and then uses that to generate the code. And then that code is used for where to save the image in storage. And it's also used for labeling the items. So then when inputting the information, this is done on this activity chat page, there's text at the top of inputting item XXX, and that XXX is again that unique 3-digit code, and that's there so that the worker can write it down on the tag. Then, and that again is what's being passed, that code was generated in the photo activity, and then it's being passed forward to this input in activity, and then being displayed in this text. So then for inputting the information, we chose to have color because size, style, and type. And so these are useful because when students are viewing these in the closet, color is useful because that way it can be used as a filter to find certain items. Size, again, to know if things will fit. And then style is, although we don't want to be restrictive of what clothing is for what kinds of people, because people can wear anything they like, sizing is very gendered in terms of men's medium isn't the same as a woman's medium. But the clothes closet chooses to handle this by having this style, which they have is masculine, feminine, or gender neutral. Though, of course, all clothing can be worn by all people, but depending on just how the clothing is made, it gets recorded just because it's useful for figuring out what might fit. And then type is again for filtering for that, something like if it's shirt or pants or jacket or shoes or anything like that. So what happens here is that the worker will type into these fields, and then the item can be uploaded. In the future, we would want to have something like drop-down menus or autofill for these fields just to make it easier to input. But for the time being, we have text input. There are two different types of uploads. One is upload item, and that's sort of the main one, and that's why it's closer. And then this one will be in a loop that will go back to photo activity. And the reason for this is because the clothes closet receives clothing in batches, where they need to put a lot in at a time. So it's simply more convenient to not have to click to input another item and to just be able to upload and go forward. But there also is this upload and finish button that will take them back home when they're done. Now for an item actually being uploaded, what happens is that the values of these fields are recorded, and then it's checked to make sure that they're not empty, and then they're pushed to the closet at the item code that was previously generated. And so what that means in the database is that there are, again, so let's look at this AAH. So at this field that there, each of these fields are stored. And that happens for each code. And then you can see that there's also a field for item count, which is keeping track of, to make sure there are no code overlaps. So that's how items are uploaded. Then for items being deleted, we know that it's really important for workers to be able to delete items to keep the database up to date. And we also, again, we want to focus on being able to do this quickly and efficiently because that's one of the concerns of the closed closet. So what happens for deletion is that they can just type in the 3-digit code, which would happen because the student physically hands the object to the worker, and then they can just type the code in, and then using the code, the information will be retrieved from the database just to make sure that the correct thing was input so they can double check, and then it can be deleted, and then that can be done multiple times in a row, and that's beneficial because things like this are often done in bulk because students take multiple items. For actually deleting, You can see that the default dialog, which is from Android alerts, is used, and information is again pulled looking up item from our Firebase database. There are different checks on whether the code is the right length. And there are, as in all of our functions, checks for if it can't be found in Firebase. So that's how items are deleted. The last thing I'm going to be talking about is editing items. So from the home page, just intuitively, it is possible to tap on any of the items displayed, and then that'll take you to an edit page. And what that will have on it, first of all, from the home page, the code of the item that is clicked is recorded, and that's passed through, so it's editing item, and so you know what it is. And then the values are again fetched from the database and then filled as the default values of these text fields, so that not only are you updating it, or so that way you only have to update the fields that you want. So if, let's say, you currently had it as a blue size 12 feminine shirt, and it was actually a size 14, you can just change the 12 to the 14 instead of having to type everything in again when you update it. So that's for convenience. And again, that's done by querying the database and then updating the database. And so that can be seen here with the Firebase. And then there's also the option to simply delete the item while the user is there.